It's time to bring the 49ers to the forefront.
It's go time. This is the best team that they can put on the field this year.
Welcome to 49ers Forecast.
You guys are going to hear it. The latest from the locker room, the latest from the podium, the latest scuttle from the players.
On your proud home of 49ers football. Touchdown! KNBR, the sports leader. Your faithful fix with your host, Larry Krueger, begins now.
And away we go. Good morning. Larry Krueger back with you on a beautiful Saturday in Northern California. Happy November the 15th. It's mid-November. Unbelievable. It was just training camp. Literally 45 seconds ago it was training camp. And now here we are. It is week 11. Week 11 in the NFL. Mid-November, the 49ers and the Arizona Cardinals go tomorrow in Glendale. Can the Niners sweep the Cardinals? They beat them once with Mac Jones. Can they beat them again with Brock Purdy this time starting at quarterback? We got a great hour for you. The incomparable Danny Dunn is running the show back at the mothership. We've got Danny Dunn on a weekend. I always love having Raph. Don't get me wrong. Raph's my guy. Raph and I go way back. But when you can dip into the Monday through Friday crowd, the Danny Dunsters of the world, this is a man who really within the last 10 calendar days showed anger for a overwhelmed KNBR caller in Afternoon Drive and beat him down. No, that was good stuff, though. Danny, everybody said, Copes was like, you're mean-spirited. Come on. He was having fun. He's having fun with a caller that may have been a little challenged. The Dunster recognized it, saw a good opportunity for a radio bit, and made it happen. And he is on the controls this morning. So good morning, great Danny Dunn. Also, we've got a phenomenal hour for you. Jordan Elliott's going to stop by. And if you've listened to 49er Forecast a few times this year on a Saturday, you've probably already heard Jordan Elliott. He's really good. Sharp young football guy, works for NBC Sports Bay Area. He's a great follow on X at, I think it's _ Splash Cousin. I'll ask him when he gets on his exact handle. But he's a really thoughtful, smart football analyst who watches film, looks for, he doesn't just throw out a bunch of half-cocked opinions with no basis, no backing. This is the guy that does the work. I really do admire this young guy. I think he's one of the best in the biz. I think he's got a great future. I really do. And that's why I like to highlight him on this show, especially on a Saturday when we know we have such a vast listening audience. It's a great time of year. KNBR weekend audience is a great audience. First of all, what do we do on the weekends in Northern California? We're doing our honeydews, we're hitting Costco, we're doing things with the kids, games, little staycations where people go, hey, I'm going I'm going to go play golf in Monterey. I'm going to go up to the wine country. Hey, we're headed to Tahoe. There's lots of people that, drive 300 miles, 400 miles maybe on a weekend, and they can listen to KNBR on the radio the entire time because we're the blowtorch. We're the biggest signal on the dial. You're not. When I was doing the nighttime show on KNBR from whatever it was, 1997 through whatever year I joined Ratty, which was 2011. Basically, in there, I was doing the nighttime a lot, and man, we would have a thing every night. Who can call from the furthest distance away? It's like, I've got Bob. He's in Southern California, but wait. I've got Leo, and he's in Utah. But wait, we have a guy in Wyoming. It was amazing. I can remember going to dinner at spring training at Ruth Chris Steakhouse with Lee J and Cyrus and Downey back in the day in the early 2000s when KNBR, the John London, not just sports morning show, and Downey was a part of that. They sent us out to spring training, and I'm listening to Bruce McGowan fill in for me on sports phone, driving home from dinner in Scottsdale. So the blowtorch is just exactly that, the blowtorch. So, and that's why we love to have Jordan Elliott on, because I want you guys all to hear him. And lots of people get to hear KNBR, especially at night. Of course, we're on in the daytime today. Let's talk a little bit about the matchup. I think it's going to be a challenging matchup. This is either going to be, this is the 4 weeks right now. It's now or never. The final 3 games are Seattle, Bears, and Colts. 2 of them on the road. So those final 3 games are going to be tough. But how many of those 3 games do you need to win? Well, if you win these next 4 games, you might not need to win any of those last 3 games. If you win these next 4 games, you're 10-7. And or you're 10-4, and then you could lose the last 3 and still finish 10-7. So these 4 games right now are definitely winnable. 49ers are going to be favored in all 4 of them, and yet they're definitely, with no pass rush and a young group of DBs and a banged up group of linebackers, they could lose to all 4 of these teams, and this season could go down the tubes right now. So it's on. It's on. And Brock Purdy's back. And we're going to find out what this matchup is going to be about, I would say really, really soon in the first quarter on Sunday. When these teams faced each other back in week 3, it was Mac Jones against Kyler Murray. The Niners got a 1-point win, if you remember, 16-15. This time it's Purdy making his first start since week 4 against Jacoby Brissett, who's going to be making his 5th start since replacing Kyler Murray. Now, if you say, oh, man, we're lucky we got Jacoby Brissett. Well, think again. They're actually playing better with Brissett than they were with Murray. Niners are 6-4. Arizona's 3-6. Don't be fooled by that. These teams are absolutely comparable. The Niners could be 4-6. Cardinals could be 6-3. I mean, we're talking about the bounce of a ball. These games have all been close. And the Cardinals and Niners play a bunch of close games if you look at the history. 49ers are a 2.5-point favorite, 105 kickoff in Glendale on Sunday. Justin Allegri sitting in for Pop this week. Greg, if you're out there, we love you, brother. Get well. Thinking about you, praying for you. Enjoying you on the radio Monday through Friday. Keep it going. Keep fighting, brother. We're all about you. But Justin Allegri sits in for Pop with T-Rock tomorrow. And, the guys who have filled in they're not Greg, but they're doing the best they can do, and they're doing a good job. And I've enjoyed all of them. Guy Haberman, we had Jack Smith on the radio, good, young, talented kid from the South Bay. Justin Allegri's a very, very good talented guy. California! There you go. I'm a Justin Allegri man myself. Let's not forget Carlos Ramirez. Carlos Ramirez filled in as well, part of the group, doing a nice job. So Niners are 2.5-point favorites. They lead the season series against the Cardinals 37-31. Niners are 5-5 against the number this year. Cards are 5-4 against the spread. Last week, both teams, got drubbed. I mean, in the NFL, when you give up 40, you usually turn around the next week and are fired up. Rams beat the Niners 42-26, so they should be fired up. But the Cardinals got their doors blown off by the Seahawks 44-22 after falling into a 35-0 hole. So they're going to be awake. I like the Niners. I like the Niners to win. Why? Arizona's really banged up. I mean, the Niners are banged up, but Arizona's more banged up. Arizona's going to be without 26.3% of their targets. No Marvin Harrison Jr., no Zay Jones. Harrison had an appendicitis surgery, so he's out. Zay Jones ruptured the Achilles last Sunday against Seattle. He's out. So is Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, and Trey McBride going to beat the Niners? Possibly, but that's what it's going to take. This is a break. This is a break the Niners really need, because Arizona's offense has struggled. I mean, but now without Harrison and Jones, they should struggle more. They're 20th in the league in points scored. They're 21st in the league in yards. It's not a great offense, but it's had a little bit of a resurgence under Brissett. Under Murray, they scored 20 points a game, 20.6 to be exact. With Brissett at quarterback, they're averaging 24.8. So they're a better team with Brissett. So don't, get into this game. It's a Niners against a backup quarterback. I'm betting the house on this one. I don't know if I would. The Niners are going to have their hands full with Trey McBride. This guy went off last week for 127 yards against Seattle. and there's no Fred Warner. And since Fred Warner has gone out, the Niners cannot defend the tight end. They've given up the third most touchdowns to the tight end of any team in the league. They've given up 6 touchdowns to tight ends. And now here comes McBride, and you know he's going to be the focal point. He is absolutely going to be the focal point. And he's been really effective with Brissett. McBride's averaging 8 receptions for 82 yards and 1.25 touchdowns in the past 4 weeks playing with Brissett. So McBride's going to be the focal point. Absolutely 100%. He's normally targeted. I mean, he's been targeted. He's had 4 games this year with 10 targets. He may have 20 in this game. This guy has been really, really good. He might be the best young tight end in the game. He leads Arizona. He's got 61 catches, 602 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns. Ranks first among NFL tight ends in catches, second among NFL tight ends in yards receiving, second in the NFL among tight ends in touchdown catches. He's got at least 1 touchdown catch in each of the last 4 games. This just in, Trey McBride is good. So tilt the coverage towards McBride, double McBride, lean towards McBride, hug up on McBride, take away McBride, keep yourself between, Brissett and McBride. If you don't know, who he's going to, assume he's going to McBride, because he probably is. And this guy alone could single-handedly ruin Week 11 for the 49ers. That's how good this kid is. And this is not a new phenomenon, by the way. This kid was awesome at Colorado State. I mean, awesome. So he's now, kind of come into the league and just, shown what he is. And I was talking to Kittle about him, and he's like, yeah, man, this guy's good. This guy's a hell of a player. This guy, game knows game, right? So George knows who the good tight ends are. And he's like, wow, this kid's real. There's no question. He's the real deal. Really, really good football player. So got to stop McBride. The other key to look for in this game is Michael Wilson. No Marvin Harrison Jr. And so what does that mean? That means the former Stanford receiver, Michael Wilson, is kind of the guy in the crosshairs. Third-year player. He'll be the number 1 option at receiver, and he's solid. He can run. He's got more than 500 yards receiving in each of his first 2 seasons in the NFL. He has 231 yards receiving and a touchdown this year. He's got speed, he's got size, and he's got playmaking ability. And if you're a Stanford fan, you know all about Michael Wilson. So this one's gonna be a huge challenge. Huge challenge for the Niners offensive line. I think the key matchup in the game is, can the Niners block Josh Sweat and Calais Campbell? Those guys have had a lot of success getting to the quarterback. In the first matchup, Calais Campbell dominated. He's this timeless player, too. It's amazing. Only Bruce Smith, I think there was one other guy, Bruce Smith and the Vikings D lineman, only guys who have ever played more games than Calais. Calais is just timeless. He just keeps going. I was asking Ben Barch this week, who, by the way, is going to share left guard with Spencer Burford. And I asked Ben Barch about Campbell, and he's like, yeah, dude, he's strong, man. This guy's a house. He's just got great leverage. He's 6'8". He's got a great motor. He's got all the tricks of the trade. He's got it all. So that's going to be a challenge. And I asked Barch, by the way, is there any rhyme or reason to this platoon at left guard between Barch and Burford? And he said, hey, man, I just work here. I just go in when they tell me to go in. So he was kind of begging off that question. He didn't want to get into it, but I haven't been able to really discern like what the, what Chris Foerster's plan is. Is it a, series by series? Is it quarter by quarter? Is it about run versus pass? Is it about, a matchup that he's seeking on the defensive line? I don't know. They didn't make Chris available. I didn't get a chance to talk to Chris. Otherwise, I would ask him that question. What is the rhyme and reason to the Barch, Burford platoon at left guard? And I asked Barch, and he said, I don't know. I mean, I go in when they tell me to go in. But, man, they've got their hands full with these guys because Sweat's got 8 sacks. Campbell's got 5. Man, they're going to try to get a hit on Purdy with that injured toe. And, to me, this is where the game's going to be won or lost. Can the 49ers block this Cardinal defensive line? If the Cardinal defensive line is owning the Niner offensive line and living in the backfield, the Cardinals are probably going to win this game. Now, the Niners haven't lost consecutively all year. The 3 losses, they've all bounced back with wins. We'll see if they can do it a 4th time. Niners have won 5 of the past 7 games overall between them and the Cardinals. Cardinals, though, are 7-4 against the Niners in the past 11 down there at State Farm Stadium in Glendale. Can the Niners get a 20-yard run? That's the other angle on this thing. 49ers have not had a 20-yard run in the first 10 games of the season for the first time since 1986. I was a sophomore at St. Ignatius in 1986. I was like thinking about the junior prom. I mean, I don't know what I was thinking. It was 1986. We were listening to Prince. We were walking around saying, "Man, I love that new song by Van Halen, Panama. That thing was awesome." 1986. Last time the Niners have gone 10 games without a 20-yard run. And they've got Christian McCaffrey. They have 290 consecutive carries without a run of 20 or more yards. Patrick Taylor had a 20-yard run in Week 18 last year against Arizona. They haven't had one since. We're going to talk about that right away with Jordan Elliott. He's going to join us next. Niners are averaging 94.8 yards rushing per game. It's the worst the Niners have had in rushing through 10 games since 2007. That's amazing considering they've got McCaffrey. They haven't had their starting quarterback, so they've had all the reason to run more. Instead, they haven't been able to run at all. So that's been a major, major thing for the 49ers. And then the turnover margin. Niners are -8 in turnovers, second worst in the NFL. And what's the key there? If you turn it over, you can't turn it over. I mean, if you if you don't get turnovers, I should say, you can't turn it over. And they don't get turnovers. 49ers do not get turnovers. And when you don't get turnovers and you don't put pressure on the quarterback, guess what? You know that you're not getting sacks either. Niners are getting 1.2 sacks per game. So then you mix in the fact that Brissett has thrown 144 straight passes without a pick, and it makes you think, man, Niners may not get a turnover in this game. They may not be able to win the turnover battle, and that could be the key factor. All right, we're going to talk more about this matchup. The 6-4 49ers, third place in the NFC West, going up against the 3-6 Arizona Cardinals, fourth place in the same division. But the numbers look very similar. Points per game, points allowed per game for both teams. I think this can be a close football game. We'll get into the matchup more next with Jordan Elliott on 49er Forecast on a Saturday on the Sports Leader.
This is where you get your faithful fix. 49ers Forecast with Larry Krueger keeps rolling on KNBR, the sports leader.
Welcome back. It's 49er Forecast on a Saturday. Larry Krueger with you on the Sports Leader, and we go to the UMA guest line for Jordan Elliott, who's a great follow. He's from NBC Sports Bay Area. He's a great follow on X at @splash_cousin, and he's with us on the UMA guest line to talk a little Niners Cardinals. Jordan, how are you?
I'm doing great, Larry. We're coming off a vintage Warriors win. We got a big 49ers game on Sunday. This is probably the best part of the Bay Area sports calendar, so shaping up to be a good weekend.
Let's review your last tweet. Jordan Elliott tweeted out, Steph Curry is the most exciting, entertaining athlete I've ever seen, and I don't think anyone else will come close in my lifetime. Wow. That's a huge endorsement for Steph. He is, and you catch him on the right night too, especially even at this point in his career, he's still electrifying. If I said to you, what Niner would be on that list, on your list of the most exciting and entertaining athletes you've ever seen, who would be the Niner that you would come up with?
That's tough. So I'm going to preface this with the fact that I'm 30 years old before people get upset at me for omitting anybody.
Right.
But for me, I would still say that it's probably Patrick Willis for me, because I think when Patrick Willis was at the top of his game, he was doing things that, I still believe he's the best linebacker I've seen in my lifetime. I think that he was a pioneer for the position, and what he was able to do athletically paired with the leadership he brought and just the fire he played with. He's definitely up there for me. It was a much smaller sample size, so it's harder to compare it to somebody like Willis, but those couple years of Aldon Smith are up there too. I think he was somebody that was on a trajectory to be one of the all-time greats and was doing things very early in his career that put him on a path to be somebody that would have been in the Hall of Fame one day and would have been one of the league's best pass rushers. But because that never, unfortunately, came to fruition, I'm going to go with Patrick Willis.
That's a good one. You use the adjectives exciting and entertaining. So I'm thinking exciting and entertaining. I mean, I could easily say Joe Montana, right? Because, Joe's Joe. Or I could say Rice, because Rice is the greatest receiver of all time. But when I hear those adjectives, exciting and entertaining, and I know he was only a Niner for a very short amount of time, but I got to go 1994 Deion Sanders. To me, Deion Sanders, he had style, but he had substance, and he took away half the field. And the Niners Falcons game in the Georgia Dome where Deion and Bad Moon Rising fought at the line of scrimmage, and then Deion picked one off and went down the sideline and scored and did the Deion dance in the end zone. That to me was, it gets no better in some ways. And that was an awesome. I enjoyed the electrifying nature of Deion Sanders. And then of course we enjoyed him. I know you're a big Giants guy too. Deion, was a Giant and was a pretty good Giant. And actually, when Deion was a Giant, I kind of felt like, that was in some ways he had a great impact on Barry Bonds, because Barry was always so standoffish with the media, but Deion was so engaging, and I almost felt like he encouraged Bonds to be more media friendly when they were both on the scene at the same time. So I'm going to say Deion Sanders. All right, let's get into the matchup. What do you expect we're going to see in this matchup? Niners and Cardinals. Brock Purdy's back. Do you expect Brock Purdy to be rusty and with diminished accuracy, arm strength, and mobility, and he's a shadow of what he was, and we're sitting there going, why did the Niners bring him back? Or are you expecting him to be relatively similar to the guy that we're used to watching, and they're going to have a great little run here with Purdy?
I think it's at the point now where there's definitely going to be some lingering effects from that injury, and especially when you're dealing with an injury that's going to be probably nagging you on every drop back when you're out there, every time you're scrambling, every time you're, booting out on play action. Like, I don't think we're at a point in the season where it's going to go away before the season's over. So it becomes just how can you manage and live with it. And I think that Purdy is the kind of guy that's made up of the kind of stuff where he will be able to find a way to manage that pain tolerance and look like a guy that we have seen in the past and be somebody that can utilize his legs a little bit and can buy time and can extend plays. And I think as fantastic as Mac Jones has played in his absence, I just think that Purdy elevates the ceiling of this offense because of some of those things that he's able to do and because of the way he's, willing to push the ball downfield. And I think, getting Ricky Pearsall back will be really big for that too. I think that's definitely going to help them stretch the field a bit more vertically, which they haven't been able to do as much as I think they would like to the past few weeks. And so, he might have a couple throws that he airmails. There might be a couple head scratching decisions here or there. He's getting back into a rhythm of things. I think no matter how good you look in practice and no matter how much work you're putting in during game planning and preparations throughout the week, nothing's going to replicate what you're seeing on Sundays. And it might take a few series for him to get back into that rhythm. But I don't think it's going to be something that's going to be defining the outcome of this game. I think Brock Purdy is ready to go, and I think that he's going to give the 49ers a chance to not only win this game, but go on a nice little run here as the schedule favors up for them a little bit down the stretch.
What did you think of Shanahan's decision to hold Purdy out against the Rams and debut him here against the Cardinals? Obviously a much more favorable matchup, you would think, on paper.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think any NFL coach is going to go into a game chalking it up as a loss before it begins, especially after the 49ers were able to, kind of steal one on the road on Thursday night, the first time they played the Rams. But I think if you're just, weighing risk management here, it's one of those things where if you weren't 100% confident that he was ready to go for that Rams game, I think it made sense to buy him a little bit more time and understand that you were already kind of facing an uphill battle in that game. And I think that there's definitely some, lingering caution after maybe they brought him back a little bit too soon against the Jaguars. And maybe that was something where both parties felt like he was ready to go and he was ready to come back. But clearly that was something that if they had the power of hindsight and the ability to redo it, I don't think he would have came back as soon. So, I think it does line up very favorably that they were able to give him the extra rest, and he's going up against a defense and a team as a whole that you'd like to think gives you a little bit more room for error. But at the same time, too, like it's the NFL and nothing is a given. And when you're playing a divisional opponent, those matchups still can be very tough. So I think it was more so about just giving him the extra time to feel more confident that you're not going to be in a spot where he does re-aggravate it in a way that, sets you back and just kind of, at this point, effectively would push him out for the rest of the season. So I think it was more about just a caution than anything.
What would you say to the people, and Tom Brady is in this group, Richard Sherman's in this group, that say, you know what, you're making a mistake. Ride with the hot hand. Jones is winning games. He just completed 85%. He's healthy. He's hot. The other guy's got an injury that the head coach admits is not going to get better, completely better, between now and the end of the year. What would you say to the crowd that says, you know what, the Niners are blowing this? They should stick with Mac Jones. They shouldn't go back to Brock Purdy just yet. Jones is playing well, and Purdy needs more rest. What would you say?
I'm going to preface this by saying that I've been a fan of Mac Jones since he was at Alabama. I thought that the Niners, if they would have drafted him in 2021, I think that would have been a very reasonable decision. And I think that he's a guy that has been underrated throughout his career. And so I like Mac Jones. I like what he brings to the table. And I think he's played exceptionally well given the circumstances around him. Having said that, I think that Brock Purdy is a better quarterback. And I think that Brock Purdy has a higher ceiling. And I think that Brock Purdy elevates the offense in a way that Mac Jones just doesn't. And a lot of other quarterbacks don't. I think that, he went in week 1 in Seattle and won a game on the road against a defense that we're seeing is among the NFL's best, against a team that's among the NFL's best. And then, just wasn't really himself against the Jaguars. I think we've gotten to a point where we're so far removed from Purdy playing regularly that people tend to forget just what he has brought to this Niners team and what he has been able to do. And I think so often, Larry, any quarterback in this scheme is a victim of having Kyle Shanahan as their coach in a perception sense. It obviously is going to help them a ton on the field. This is a very quarterback-friendly scheme, but because of that, your contributions to the success of the offense are always going to be diminished, especially on a national scale. I think people in Northern California, the Bay Area, do tend to see the difference in quarterback play, but when you hear the national dialogue, it's like, oh, well, Brock Purdy, Mac Jones, Jimmy G, like they're all in the same tier. And for me, I don't think that could be any less true. And so I think when you look back at some of the things that Brock was able to do when this team was a little bit more healthy a couple years ago, and when they made that run to the Super Bowl, like those games against the Packers and Lions, two very tough teams in the playoffs, like Brock went out and helped them win those games. He was not a passenger along the ride getting carried by his defense or his run game. He was a guy that had to go out there and make plays repeatedly in clutch time under the bright lights. And I think that he's just a guy that has the makeup to do that. And so for me, as great as Mac Jones has played, I think there's a reason why you gave Purdy the contract you did. I think there's a reason why so many people in that building believe in him and so many people in that locker room believe in him. And I think if he is healthy and he is able to play, that you can't leave any doubt that he is your guy, and you have to put him back in no matter how good Mac Jones is playing. So it is unfortunate for Mac Jones. I don't think he could have done really anything differently than he did. I think he deserves a ton of credit and a ton of praise for the way he played, but you have to, put that aside and weigh who you believe the better quarterback is going forward. And I still think that that's Brock Purdy.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Purdy's the better player. I think there's a grit, there's a downfield passing element, there's a mobility that Mac doesn't have. Now we're going to find out is the injury sapped Purdy of those advantages, and if so, maybe Jones is better. But the Niners are averaging only 22 points a game, which is 23rd in the NFL. It's the fewest points they've had through 10 games since Shanahan's first year. So I'm sure Shanahan's looking at that offense, especially with the defense racked with injuries, going, hey, we need to be a little bit more dynamic on offense if we're going to win some of these games, especially some of the closer games on our schedule later on in the year. So, and of course, obviously, Brock Purdy's their starting quarterback, and whenever he says he's healthy, he's the $265 million man. He's the guy they invested in. He's the guy who led them to a Super Bowl. They're going back to him. That being said, I think they're hoping for more of a downfield attack. I don't know if I can fault Jones for not having a downfield attack. He never had Ayuk. He didn't have Ricky Pearsall. He hasn't had Debo. I mean, Debo's moved on. They don't really have the weapons. He's operating behind a line that's not great, with a run game that isn't great, with a defense that isn't great, and he still found a way to win games and keep the Niners alive. I mean, if the Niners do anything in the playoffs, this is the season that was saved in October by Mac Jones, and there's just no question about that. But that leads me to Ricky Pearsall, and I kind of feel like Ricky Pearsall's been given a pass from criticism just because he was shot last year, and everybody understands that that's obviously a terrible crisis in your life and what he's had to endure and this and that. Score a touchdown. I mean, you're a first-round draft choice. He's already played 4 games this year. Score a touchdown. I've heard people say he's the best since that, he's the best since. Let's pump the brakes on the Ricky love. I like him too. He's a nice guy. He's done some decent things. Score a freaking touchdown. He has 0 touchdowns. Am I being too critical of Ricky? I mean, it seems like if you draft a receiver in the first round, I expect that guy to score 5 or 6 touchdowns, period, every year, no matter what. And he's got none, and it's almost Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I would push back a little bit on that, Larry. I think one of the things that's glaring to me too is, for years that was always, I felt like an argument people would use against Kittle, that he didn't have the touchdown numbers that like a Kelsey or a Gronkowski or some of these other elite tight ends would have. And I felt like it didn't really, to me, that didn't take away all of the positives that he brought. And I think that's, there's a lot of external factors that contribute to that, whether it's, play calling, especially when you're down near the red zone, and the other weapons on offense getting fed. To me, the thing that stands out the most with Pearsall isn't the no touchdowns. It's the 16.4 yards per catch, and the fact that he was a guy that was able to beat man coverage. He was able to beat press. He was able to get open deep. He was able to get open in the intermediate area of the field. And, in the games he's played, he's caught 20 of the 28 targets he's been given. And so I think there's an efficiency throwing to him. And I think that he is just able to get open at a level that a lot of the other guys in that receiver room just can't. And I think that that's a reason why he was a first round pick. I think that's a reason why the 49ers were so enamored with him when they took him. And so, especially with Ayuk out, I think we've seen the last few weeks, it's been very admirable the way that they've been able to scrape by and pull out some of these wins. But you need guys that can get open against, man coverage when, you're not able to scheme against a certain front or a certain coverage. Like when it's just two guys on an island and one has to be better than the other, I think that Pearsall right now is their best option to do that. And so I think just getting that back is going to give them such a big boost, especially when we're talking about throwing, 15 to 25 yards downfield. I think that that's something that's really been lacking the last few weeks. And him and Purdy both coming back at the same time gives them a great opportunity to hopefully find some rhythm with that downfield passing attack.
Yeah, I mean, they need him. They need him. They need a downfield attack, and they don't have the Niner receivers outside of Pearsall are just got to be the slowest group of receivers of all time. Bourne is slow. JJ's slow. I mean, Watkins doesn't get on the field. Cowing never plays. The guys who are fast don't play. The rest of the guys are really slow. Then you look at the other weapons, Juice, and across the board, the tight ends. There's not a lot of speed on this offense. Is that part of their inability to make plays down the field? Is they don't have a lot of speed?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think that there's a lot of experience, and we've seen Bourne have those back-to-back 140-yard games. Jennings is a guy that you can count on big third downs when you get down in the red zone. So they have guys that can step up in those moments, but when you're, running 60, 75 plays a game, you need that explosiveness. You need some of those, younger guys with fresher legs that have a little bit more twitch at the line of scrimmage that are able to, just explode off the line a little bit better. And I think right now that's something that is lacking. And I think that there's a reason why, Christian McCaffrey is their leading receiver right now, because he's probably the guy that you can count on the most to have that kind of quick twitch and explosiveness. And without him, I don't want to think about where this offense would have been the last few weeks, but luckily they've been able to stay afloat. Having him basically be the lead ball carrier and their number one receiver. So yeah, I think that's a very good point. And I think it's one of those things where hopefully getting Pearsall back helps. Hopefully at some point Ayuk can come back and help with that. But yeah, I think it's just at the point when you are relying on guys who are a little bit slower or who do have a little bit more mileage on them, like that's unfortunately going to be a consequence of that.
It's Jordan Elliott with us on the Yuma guest line as we look ahead to tomorrow's Niner game. Niners and Cardinals go in the desert. We'll have it for you on the sports leader, Adam Copeland, and JD. We'll have the pregame show. I will join them for a segment in the pre as well as the post. Look for that tomorrow. We'll have Niner coverage all day long on the sports leader. Justin Allegri and Tim Ryan on the call. Justin sitting in for Greg Papa this week. You look at the Niners numbers offensively. They're 11th overall in total offense, so 11th in yards per game, but they're 23 in points per game. They're number one as far as a passing attack, but they're number 27 as a rushing attack, and they have Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey last week went for 2.5 yards a carry. I think it might be time for more Brian Robinson. The last 2 weeks, he's averaging more like over 7 yards a carry. It's funny if you say about any football player, he's lost a step. Eventually, you're going to be right because these careers are short, and eventually everybody loses a step. But if you ask anybody around the Niners about CMC, if CMC lost, no, he's as good as ever. Well, if he's as good as ever, then why is he averaging 2.5 yards a carry some games? Why has he only had 2 games all year where he's averaged over 4 yards a carry? Where Robinson's had like 5 games or 6 games like that already. What do you make of CMC? Are we seeing the decline of the great Christian McCaffrey? And if not, what's the reason for his statistical drop?
I think you make a great point. Like eventually every player is going to slow down a little bit, and especially coming off the injury that McCaffrey had last year where he was dealing with the Achilles tendonitis in both legs. Like it's only natural that there's probably going to be, he's probably not going to be the guy that was in the MVP conversation in 2023 in terms of his explosiveness and just the highest possible level he was playing at. But I don't really fault McCaffrey for their struggles in the run game this year. To me, the most glaring thing that I'm seeing week in and week out is that they just haven't really been able to get into a rhythm on the interior. I think a lot of that has had to do with the fact there's been kind of a revolving door at left guard, with Barch and Burford and Connor Colby all taking snaps there, having a seventh-round rookie in Colby starting and playing in probably more games than they would have liked, and definitely more than I think they were expecting. Jake Brendel getting hurt and Matt Hennessy having to fill in. And then on top of it, Dominic Cooney, I think for the majority of the season, has been playing through a knee injury. If you remember that preseason game against the Raiders, when he had that knee injury where everyone was worried that he was going to be out for an extended period or even the season, and he somehow managed to just play through it and was ready to go when week one rolled around. But he definitely didn't look like himself, and he didn't look like the player that he was as a rookie last year. So when I'm turning on the tape, to me, the biggest thing I'm seeing week in and week out is that they just aren't executing at both guard spots and at the center spot at the rate they have been the last few seasons, and it's creating a lot of problems for them getting into a rhythm in the run game. And a lot of those holes and a lot of those angles that were there in years past for McCaffrey and, for the running backs that were with the Niners before McCaffrey just aren't there. And I think that's the hardest part to kind of figure out what is going on, because even when the Niners struggled, even when they had the seasons where they weren't making the playoffs and they were losing a lot of games, they always had a respectable rushing attack, and they always were a team that would threaten you on the ground, and you had to pay close attention to what they were doing on the ground. And this year they're averaging 3.5 yards per attempt, which is by far the lowest they've had under Shanahan, and it's dead last in the NFL. And so I understand that the first thought is going to be, is McCaffrey, has he lost a step? Is he not as explosive? But I really feel like it's the interior of that offensive line just not really being able to get a consistent 3 players out there week in and week out and finding that rhythm to gel together. That's been the biggest detriment. And ideally you can find that going forward. I know Barch and Burford were kind of rotating snaps last week, and, it seems like they're kind of trying to figure out who's going to solidify that spot. But with Cooney looking better and Brendel back, hopefully they can get into a little bit more of a rhythm going forward, because I think as long as there is that lack of cohesion on the inside, it doesn't matter who you have running back there. I think Barry Sanders would struggle to run behind that line at times this season.
Yeah, that's fair. Burch and Barford, the plan, I think, is to split reps at left guard, even in this game against Arizona. How would you compare the two? Barch is a little bit more of the veteran, maybe a little bit taller, a little bit bigger body. Maybe Burford's got a little bit more weight, maybe. Burford was thought to be tackle. Now he's back playing guard. I never thought he was a tackle. He was a collegiate tackle at Texas San Antonio. But what do you think? Who would you go with between Barch and Burford? Or do you see what do you see as their strengths and weaknesses as players?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that at times I think that Barch, you can see the experience of playing guard in the NFL, where I think that just he has more reps there and he's more comfortable there, which to me is something that can't be overlooked. But I personally think that Burford is a better athlete, and I think especially when he's getting into space and he's blocking guys at the second level, or when they're running gap scheme and he's having to pull, he's doing it in a way that's a lot more explosive than Barch. And I think we saw in that win against the Giants a couple of weeks ago, on a couple of those big runs that they were finally able to break open, and especially on a couple of those Brian Robinson carries, he was at the forefront of that with his ability to get off the line quickly and to get to the spot where he needed to block with a little bit more emphasis and a little bit more explosion. I think that getting back to playing on the left side was a big thing for him, because, as you mentioned, he was a left tackle when he was playing at San Antonio in college. And I think that anytime you have Trent Williams to your left, it's going to give you a little bit more room for error. It's going to give you a little bit more, confidence in what you're going to be doing, just because you have a Hall of Famer right beside you. And I think that because of that, I would prefer the guy that gives you a little bit more explosion, a little bit more athleticism, and gives you the ability to maybe be a little bit more varied in the kind of run calls that you are dialing up. So I would go with Burford, but I also think that that's an area where there might be a couple plays during a game where the experience that Barch has playing the position, maybe he wouldn't make the same mistake in that spot. So I can understand both sides of it, but I just think that Burford gives them a higher ceiling because of his athleticism.
Let me get one in on the defense before we say goodbye. The Cardinal offense is really thriving between the 20s. Their offense is averaging 6.55 plays per drive, fourth highest average in the league. That number has gone up the last 4 weeks with Brissett. They're averaging 7 plays per drive in the 41 drives since Brissett took over the starting job. And this goes right against where the Niners have been struggling a lot recently. The last few weeks, the Niners defense has allowed scoring drives of 16 plays, 10 plays, 11 plays, 12 plays, 10 plays, 10 plays, 10 plays, 12 plays. This is just over the last 3 weeks. And of course, we know they're 1-2 in those games. What do you see for the 49ers? What's the key in this game defensively? Demo Lenore's got a calf injury, and we don't know his status. I would say there's a chance he doesn't go. We know they're challenged up front to rush the passer, and they're banged up at linebacker. How do you see the 49er challenge in this game against Brissett and this Cardinal team that's also, down their 2 top receivers, and they're not rolling in 100%?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it all starts with Trey McBride. I think that if they're not able to slow him down and contain him, it's going to be a really long afternoon. He has found a great connection with Jacoby Brissett. He has 5 touchdowns in 4 games with Brissett as the starting quarterback, and he had 5 touchdowns with Kyler Murray in 2.5 seasons total. So I think that there's definitely a rapport there that for whatever reason didn't seem to be there when Kyler Murray was a starting quarterback. And, Arizona's passing attack has been more explosive with Brissett under center. They're averaging more yards per attempt. They're throwing the ball downfield more often. They're more accurate throwing the ball downfield. So I think it creates a different dynamic than what the 49ers have been accustomed to playing the Cardinals. I will say, having said all of that, that not having to deal with Kyler Murray's rushing ability and his ability to get out of the pocket and extend drives and convert those 3rd and 8s and 3rd and 9s where the coverage is really good on the back end and they're getting pressure on him, but he just finds a way to escape and scramble for a first down, which I feel like we've seen happen 100 times since he's in the league against the Niners. I think that does play a big part in this too, where you can feel a little bit better. And if you're Robert Saleh, you can feel a little bit more confident in dialing up some pressures from the secondary maybe, or, mugging the A-gap with your linebackers and, sending both or dropping one into coverage and having one blitz through the A-gap. Like, I think it gives you a little bit more room to get creative with your pressures because you don't have to be worried about Murray beating you with his legs, which he's done time and time again. He averaged 50 yards a game on the ground against the Niners in his career in 9 games. And so I think even though Brissett has taken the passing attack to a different level, as we've seen for years, regardless of how healthy the Niners defense is and how many star players they have out there on the field, those mobile quarterbacks have kind of been their kryptonite. So I think not having Kyler out there is a bigger advantage than whatever the Cardinals are getting from Brissett kind of elevating their passing attack specifically for this matchup.
Always awesome to wrap with you, man. We really appreciate you. Thanks for stopping by. 1-word answer on your way out the door. Should the Niners next year bring Mac Jones back as their backup quarterback? He's under contract for $7 million, or trade him for draft capital? What do you think?
Bring him back 100%. I don't think what you get in draft capital can replicate the level of security you get from having a guy that can step in and do what he did this season. And I also think just the vibes he brings to the locker room and how beloved he is by his teammates. I think having a glue guy like that in your quarterback room at any level is extremely valuable, but especially when it's somebody that can be a backup along with, Purdy. I think that that's just too valuable to pass up for the draft capital you'd get back.
You can find him on X at @splash_cousin. Every time we speak, we come out of it a little smarter for having listened to Jordan Elliott. Jordan, have a great Saturday, man. Always great to talk Niner ball with you. We'll do it again.
Thanks, Larry. Always a pleasure.
The great Jordan Elliott. All right, we'll come back with our 49er stat of the day, and then we will get on with our college football viewing Saturday on the Sports Leader.
Faithful, time to make some Niners noise. 49ers Forecast with Larry Krueger now continues on your proud home of 49ers football. KNBR, the sports leader.
And we're coming down the home stretch on 49er Forecast. JD and Kyle Haar getting it warmed up for Just Dubs. They're coming at you literally seconds from now. But it is time for our 49ers stat of the day. The 49ers have very little pass rush. Obviously, you lose Bosa, you lose Fred Warner, even the Niners lose Mikael Williams. They've lost a lot on their front seven. But you know what? Who's the guy that we don't talk about, who they don't have right now, who's really costing them? It's Yetur Gross-Matos. Yetur Gross-Matos was really thriving as an inside rusher when he was healthy. His win rate when rushing from the interior this year, 23.4%. It was the best in the entire league. And Gross-Matos is out as well. So no Mikael, no Gross-Matos, no Bosa, no Warner. And we talk about those other guys, but we don't talk about Yetur Gross-Matos, but he was playing really, really well. All right, that's going to do it for us. Check out JD with Copes in the morning for 49er pregame. I'll be joining them for a segment in the pre and the post. JD's up next with Kyle Haar. They'll talk about the Warriors. How about the Warriors? 49 from Steph last night. They got a 1-point win. They're off tonight. They're in New Orleans at the Smoothie King Center, I believe, on Sunday to take on the Pelicans and Trey Murphy. And they'll talk Warrior basketball next on the Sports Leader.